We are very grateful to His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. In spite of his busy schedule, he's doing a lot of study and classes, particularly for the devotees back in Russia. He's currently in Govardhan, and this will be the first session of the 3 sessions that Maharaj is going to take us through the review of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Before we begin, a small introduction, and then we will indeed look forward to listening intently to what he has to share with us today. So, His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj, he took up to spiritual life back in 1980, one of the most difficult times of the communist era, the former Soviet Union. Maharaj in his Purva Ashram was a scientist with the post-graduation from the Institute of Molecular Biology. And he also decided to experiment with the Hare Krishna mantra. And to his great happiness, it moved him profoundly. And since then, he's been fully dedicated to the cause of perpetuating and preaching and practicing the teachings of His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Maharaj travels widely throughout Russia, United States, Far East, India, and we also had a good fortune of hosting him twice last year. Maharaj has taken many proactive steps and initiatives encouraging the devotees for systematic study and practice of the philosophy as handed down to us by Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. So much so that in the year 2010, the Council for Public Awards of the Russian Federation awarded Maharaj for his contribution in strengthening Russian-Indian friendly relations and for his contribution to the popularization of the spiritual, cultural, literary heritage of India. So on that note, I request Maharaj to take us through the first session of the seminar, the preview on Srimad-Bhagavatam. Maharaj, over to you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be with all of you. I hope you can hear me nicely. I don't know how many sessions it will take, probably 3 or maybe 4. Let's see. It also depends on your questions and other stuff. So let's begin with some structural review of Srimad-Bhagavatam by chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayana Namaskritya Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nashta Prayeshva Vadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Yam Pravrajantam Anapetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayana Virahakatara Juhava Putreti Tanmayatayo Taravo Vinedus Tam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. So I will read for this lecture of ours, one of the last verses of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the 19th verse from the 13th chapter of the 12th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. This chapter is entitled The Glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Kasmayena vibhasito yamatulo jnana pradipa pura tadrupena cha naradaya munaye krishnaya tadrupena yogindraya tadatmanatha bhagavatrataya karunayatas tachudram vimalam vishokam amritam satyam param dhimahi satyam param dhimahi. Kasmai unto Brahma, yena by whom, vibhasitaha thoroughly revealed, ayam this, atulaha incomparable, jnana of transcendental knowledge, pradipaha the torchlight, pura in the form of Brahma, cha and naradaya to Narada, munaye the great sage, krishnaya to Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, tadrupina in the form of Narada, yogindraya to the best of yogis, Shukadeva Goswami, tadatmana as Narada, atha then, bhagavatrataya to Parikshit Maharaja, karunyataha out of mercy, tat that, shuddham pure, vimalam uncontaminated, vishokam free from misery, amritam immortal, satyam upon the truth, param supreme, dhimahi we meditate. Translation. We meditate upon that pure and spotless supreme absolute truth who is free from suffering and death, and who is the beginning and who in the beginning personally revealed this incomparable torchlight of knowledge to Brahma. Brahma then spoke it to the sage Narada, who narrated it to Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Srila Vyasadev revealed this Bhagavatam to the greatest of sages, Shukadeva Goswami, and Shukadeva Goswami mercifully spoke it to Maharaja Parikshit. Purport. The first verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam states, Satyam Param Dhimahi, I meditate upon the Supreme Truth. And now, at the conclusion of this magnificent transcendental literature, the same auspicious sounds are vibrated. The words Tadrupena, Tadrupina, Tadatmana in this verse clearly indicate that Lord Krishna himself originally spoke Srimad-Bhagavatam to Brahma and then continued to speak this literature through the agency of Narada Muni, Dvaipayana Vyasa, Shukadev Goswami, and other great sages. In other words, whenever saintly devotees vibrate Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna himself is speaking the absolute truth through the agency of his pure representatives. Anyone who submissively hears this literature from the Lord's bona fide devotees transcends his conditioned state and becomes qualified to meditate upon the absolute truth and serve him. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Kasmayena vibhashito Yamatulo Jnana Pradipa Pura Tadrupena Sanaradaya Munaye Krishnaya Tadrupina Yogindraya Tadatmanatha Bhagavatrataya Karunyatas Tatchudram Vimalam Vishokam Amritam Satyam Param Dhimahi Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarabhesya Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Ajanulambit Bujokna Kavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksha. Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priya Karo Karanavatar. Yantak Pravishya Mamavachim Mamam Prasuptam Sanjeevaya Tekila Shakti Daraksvadam. Anyam Shahasta Charana Shravana Tvagadi. Pranannamo Bhagavate Purushaya Tudim. Swasyaste Vishwasya Kalak Prasidatam Jayantu Bhutani Shivam Mithodya Manascha Badaram Vachata Tatucha Adhokshacha Adeshyatam Naumati Apyahai. Hare Krishna. I have chosen this very beautiful verse from Srimad-Bhagavatam to explain the glory of this process of studying Srimad-Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. At the same time, to indicate the difficulty which it involves. The glory of it is very clearly stressed here in a very beautiful way. Srila Sutta Goswami, concluding this great book, he says that let's meditate upon this supreme truth, who is Vimalam, completely pure, Vishokam, completely free from all the sufferings, who is Amritam, completely deathless, eternal, Satyam Param Dhimahi. We are meditating on this truth by reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. And the process of receiving Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is Jnana Pradipa, which is the torchlight of knowledge, which is compared to the Deepa, to the lamp of knowledge, is to receive it through parampara. And whenever this Srimad-Bhagavatam is being discussed or is being spoken by the representatives of parampara, in fact, it is Krishna himself who speaks Srimad-Bhagavatam. This is an amazing, mind-blowing statement. It is said specifically that in the beginning, Krishna himself revealed Srimad-Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma, but it didn't stop there. Then Krishna himself revealed Srimad-Bhagavatam in the form of Lord Brahma to Narada Muni. It's not Brahma who was explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam to Narada Muni. It was Krishna himself speaking through Lord Brahma. And then Narada Muni came to Srila Vyasadeva. And Narada Muni gave instructions to Vyasadeva in regard to Srimad-Bhagavatam. And Sutta Goswami says that at that moment when Narada Muni was speaking Srimad-Bhagavatam or explaining what Srila Vyasadeva is supposed to write as his highest contribution to the world of spiritual literature, it was Krishna himself who was speaking through Narada Muni. And then when Srila Vyasadeva received this knowledge from Krishna himself in the form of Narada, and in his turn was trying or was explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam, teaching Srimad-Bhagavatam to his son, Shukadev Goswami, it was not Vyasadev. It was Krishna himself who was speaking through Vyasadev. And when Shukadev Goswami spoke Srimad-Bhagavatam in turn to Maharaja Parikshit, it was Krishna himself who entered into Shukadev Goswami and who revealed this knowledge to Maharaja Parikshit. And we can safely continue this logic and tell that when Sutta Goswami was explaining this to the sages of Naimisharanya, it was Krishna himself who was speaking through him, not Sutta Goswami. And when Srila Prabhupada came to America and started explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam to his first followers, it was Krishna himself who was speaking through him. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada himself indicated this. He says that it's not me, it's not I who is speaking. It's Krishna who is speaking through me on the dint of the purity of the heart and the purity of desire to convey this knowledge. We all know the famous prayer of Srila Prabhupada before he embarked his preaching mission in America, Markini Bhagavata Dharma, where he ponders over this problem. He says how they will understand the words of Srimad-Bhagavatam. The words of Srimad-Bhagavatam are completely pure and spotless. How all these people whose hearts are contaminated by the thick layers of Rajagun and Tamagun will be able to understand this. And he prays for the help of Krishna, and he says, please, you make them understand your message. Only you can make them understand your message. Only you is capable of explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam, nobody else. So what we can say here is that whenever the hearing of Srimad-Bhagavatam is affected, is really being effective, means that Nashta Prayashva Badrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Whenever we see this effect of Srimad-Bhagavatam, this powerful effect of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the effect of purification of the heart from the extraneous desires for sense aggrandizement, for sense gratification, for self-aggrandizement, for sense gratification. Whenever this happens, it means that Krishna is involved. To the extent of the purity of the speaker and to the extent of the purity of the intent of the listener. It is beautifully explained there that by the dint of this listening Srimad-Bhagavatam, this completely amazing quality is being developed in a human being, Satyam Param Dhimahi, the ability to meditate on the supreme truths. The word Dhimahi means that the person who meditates contains the supreme truths within his intelligence. And how is it possible? This is a miracle in itself. How is it possible to contain the unlimited supreme truths within our very limited, tiny intelligence? But nevertheless, it happens. And the proof of it is Srimad-Bhagavatam itself. Otherwise, Srila Shukadev Goswami or Srila Vyasadeva would not speak these words, would not vibrate these words in the first verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Satyam Param Dhimahi. And Sutta Goswami would not repeat the same words in the very end of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Satyam Param Dhimahi. The result of this sadhana, listening Srimad-Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, especially from the proper source, is that the supreme truth is being is being arrested within our heart. This is how Srila Prabhupada is translating in the second verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam, that the Supreme Lord himself is being arrested within the heart as soon as the pure desire of the listener arises in his heart. I want to listen Srimad-Bhagavatam. I want to understand what this book is all about. So again, this verse indicates very clearly the glory of listening Srimad-Bhagavatam, how important it is, and the difficulty, because there has to be purity of the heart, the purity of the heart of the speaker, and the purity of the heart of the hearer, listener of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the purity of intent, the desire to really serve the Supreme Lord, not just to enjoy the topics of Srimad-Bhagavatam, to enjoy the topics of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So, having said this, I want to continue with the explaining both meaning, deep meaning of listening Srimad-Bhagavatam, the amazing result of listening Srimad-Bhagavatam from one side, and at the same time, simultaneously, the difficulties which are connected with this process. The difficulties. So, Srila Jiva Goswami, before laying the foundation for his Sat-Sandarbhas in the first Sandarbha, in Tattva Sandarbha, he explains that when he explaining pramana, the different means of getting the correct knowledge or understanding the correct knowledge, he says that when we are inquisitive about God, when we want to understand the absolute truth, we have to understand very clearly the four fundamental characteristics of the Supreme Truth, which makes it completely unknowable. It's not possible to know the Supreme Truth because the Supreme Truth is Sarvatita. Sarvatita means transcendental. It's beyond everything. Atita means beyond. Sarvatita, it's far beyond everything which is reachable by our senses, which we can reach. And at the same time, it's Sarvashraya. Sarvashraya means that it contains within it everything, and it's the foundation of everything else. It's Ashraya. It's the shelter foundation. It's the background of everything. It contains within itself everything. So Sarvatita, Sarvashraya, Sarvachintya. And it's completely incomprehensible. It's achintya, it's inconceivable, sarvachintya. It contains so many contradictions at the same time that by logic, which works by excluding contradictions, which cannot really accommodate contradictions, we cannot really understand this supreme truth, which is sarvachintya. And finally, sarvascharya svabhav. The very nature of this truth is sarvascharya. It's completely amazing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. The nature of the supreme truth is amazing. It's just it can only create this vismit, this complete amazement within the heart, complete admiration or surprise. So when this vastu, which we want to understand, and this is God, this is by definition God. God by definition has to be beyond everything, has to accommodate everything, has to be inconceivable, means meaning that he has to accommodate all the contradictions, and at the same time, he remains amazing. He remains a miracle. So this is God. So how we will be able to understand God? How is that possible to understand God? But at the same time, this question, this jigyas, this desire to understand God is very prominent within everyone's heart. Every living entity at one point of his life asked this question: what is this absolute truth? How this world is coming about? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? These questions naturally arise within the heart of living entity, and ultimately all these questions point out that you should understand the cause of all causes. Unless you understand the cause of all causes, you will not be able to answer these questions, and you will not be able to feel the fulfillment within your heart. You will not be able to feel that your life is successful because you didn't answer these fundamental questions. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains this is the nature, this is the subject matter which we are dealing with. This is the subject matter of Vedanta Sutra. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Let's inquire about the nature of Brahman. This is the nature of, this is the subject matter of all Vedic literature, in fact, because Vedas are trying to convey this message. And Srila Jiva Goswami, of course, we will not go into details, but he explains that the only means, the only way to understand the absolute truth, which has this nature, which has these four fundamental characteristics, the only way to understand the absolute truth is through aprakrita vachana. Aprakrita vachana means through the sound vibration which has nothing to do with this matter, which is aprakrit, which is totally transcendental. In other words, for us to understand the truth, we have to depend on the absolute truth to reveal himself through the meaning of sound. The absolute truth has to reveal himself. There's no other way to understand absolute truth. And that's exactly the meaning of this verse. Krishna himself has to reveal himself, and this is the only way for us to understand him. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. We will not be able to understand anything about God unless he reveals himself. And he is doing this revelation, he is revealing himself through the meaning of Srimad-Bhagavatam. This is, in fact, is the very point or the essence of Tattva Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, where he says that Srimad-Bhagavatam is the means to understand the supreme truth, and studying of Srimad-Bhagavatam is the sadhana, which has to be done every day, regularly, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Then this revelation may take place within our heart. And this very great importance on this sadhana is important feature, is a very important feature of Gaudiya Sampradaya. We know that different schools of Vaishnava philosophy, they make prominent different books. Not every school of Vaishnava philosophy, personalistic philosophy, treats all the books equal. There are some preferences. Like in Ramanuja Sampradaya, the emphasis is on studying Vedanta Sutra, and of course on studying Upanishads, and on studying Ramayana. Ramayana, and of course Divya Prabandha, the revelation of Vedas, which was done by Alvars. But Ramayana is a very essential part of their sadhana. Because Upanishads are very difficult to understand. They're written in a very complicated language, not in a very straightforward manner. To study Vedanta Sutra, you really have to be a philosopher, and you have to have a very dry heart, because only dry heart can be satisfied with studying all these intricacies of the philosophy of Upanishads, which Vedanta Sutra explains. And therefore, the general emphasis in Sri Sampradaya is on Ramayana, besides the hymns on Alvars. When we come to Madhva Sampradaya, we will see the great emphasis which is made on studying Mahabharata. Madhvacharya himself wrote this amazing book, Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, where he explains the hidden meaning of Mahabharata, reveals this meaning of Mahabharata. And of course, we know that he is one of the main heroes of Mahabharata. So naturally, he has kind of soft spot towards Mahabharata, which glorifies himself in the form of Bhima, one of the Pandavas. Madhvacharya's incarnation of Vayudev, who also incarnated before as Bhimasen and before as Hanuman. So they very much stress this, and within Mahabharata, of course, Bhagavad Gita is contained, and the studying of Bhagavad Gita is very much is very important in Madhva Sampradaya. It's amazing, of course, we know that Srila Prabhupada made Bhagavad Gita very prominent and important, but the fathers, the founding fathers of our Sampradaya spoke very little about Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, they quoted some few verses. Before Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there was no commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and of course then Baladev Vidyabhushan wrote Gita Bhushana, and Srila Prabhupada translated Gita Bhushana and elaborated on Gita Bhushana in his Bhagavad Gita as it is. But what I want to say is that originally, as a foundational book, Bhagavad Gita is not so prominent in our Sampradaya, in one sense. Because of a simple reason, because the emphasis of Gaudiya Sampradaya is on something else. It's on rasa, it's on bhakti. Whereas Bhagavad Gita gives hints, indicates bhakti, but does not openly glorify bhakti as the only way. And yeah, then there are some other books, like for example in Ramanandi Sampradaya, which is quite prominent here in Govardhan especially. There are many Ramanandi sadhus. They study Ramcharitmanas. They don't study the original Ramayana, but they study and read Ramcharitmanas. And whenever they say, you know, we're reading Ramayana, they actually mean Ramcharitmanas by Tulsidas. And that's their book, the book which nourishes their understanding, nourishes their heart. So in the similar way, Srimad-Bhagavatam is this book of nourishment for all the Gaudiyas. It's Srimad-Bhagavatam and only Srimad-Bhagavatam which is so prominent. Of course, in Vallabha Sampradaya from Vishnu Swami line, Srimad-Bhagavatam is also quite prominent. This perhaps two schools of Vaishnava philosophy where Srimad-Bhagavatam is given special attention. So this is for us to understand how important it is. And of course, Srila Jiva Goswami, while explaining this, he quotes Garuda Purana, which is quoted by Madhvacharya himself, where he says that in fact, Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence, is the explanation of the meaning of Mahabharata. Because ultimately Mahabharata leads us to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. But while reading Mahabharata, we may very easily lose this focus. We may not understand really this focus just by reading Mahabharata. So Srimad-Bhagavatam is explaining the meaning of Mahabharata by very clearly pointing out that it is Krishna who is the subject matter of Mahabharata as well. And Srimad-Bhagavatam is the purport or explanation of Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra, and Srimad-Bhagavatam is the explanation of Brahma Gayatri. I may explain this little later in one of the, probably in the third lecture, if we have enough time, how Srimad-Bhagavatam and Brahma Gayatri are related to each other, and how Srimad-Bhagavatam and Vedanta Sutra, and how the first verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam gives a very beautiful explanation of the foundational sutras of Vedanta Sutra. We may come to this, but I am just speaking on the fundamental importance of the subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam and the study of Srimad-Bhagavatam as the sadhana. But there is a difficulty, and as we know, whenever there is something which is very great, whenever there is some great advantage, there must be some disadvantage there. You cannot just get pure advantage without disadvantages. So disadvantage is there, and disadvantage is that it's actually difficult to understand Srimad-Bhagavatam. And the simple reason why this difficulty arises is that, and please don't take me wrong, it's possible to understand Srimad-Bhagavatam, but what I mean to say is that Srimad-Bhagavatam is a very complicated procedure, and when one tries to understand it just by reading it, he may very well fail to understand the inner meaning or intention of the book, intention of the author. And one reason, one very important reason is that this is explained by some of our acharyas, is that there are three kinds of languages in Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is written not in Sanskrit language. It's technically speaking, it's Sanskrit. And sometimes it's even archaic Sanskrit, Vedic Sanskrit. But in reality, Srimad-Bhagavatam is written in what is called Samadhi Bhasha. Because in the very beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 7th chapter of the first canto, this trance or samadhi of Vyasadeva is being explained when he saw the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam. Actually, this is a very long and ancient tradition, because whenever a great rishi would reveal mantra, he would first see mantra. That's the exact meaning of the word rishi. Rishi comes from the verb to see, drish, from the root drish. Rishi is somebody who has seen mantras. He has not heard mantras. He has seen mantras. He has seen the visible form of the mantra. And in the same way, Valmiki Muni, he saw the whole Ramayana in his trance, in his samadhi. Ramayana was written by Valmiki Muni before all the events of Ramayana took place. Because in his mystical vision, Valmiki Muni could see Ramayana very clearly in front of his eyes, could hear the heroes of Ramayana speaking with each other, and so on and so forth. And in the same way, Srila Vyasadeva saw Srimad-Bhagavatam in his samadhi, and then he wrote down or composed Srimad-Bhagavatam after seeing it in his samadhi. Seeing basically means that whenever Srila Vyasadeva and later Srila Shukadeva Goswami, who revealed or who received Srimad-Bhagavatam through the same process of samadhi, Whenever Shukadev Goswami, for example, explains how Mother Yashoda binds Krishna, he is not explaining it because he heard it from Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva heard it from Narada, and Narada heard it from Brahma, and Brahma heard it from Krishna. No, he explains it because he sees how it's happening. In his samadhi, he goes into trance and he sees how Mother Yashoda is trying really hard. He sees her sari, he sees the flower decoration in her hairs, and he sees the drops of perspiration upon her forehead, and he sees the expression on her face. And while seeing it, he's speaking it to Maharaja Parikshit. And when he's speaking to Maharaja Parikshit sees what Shukadev Goswami is explaining to him. So the meaning is that it's written in Samadhi Bhasha, and it's not so easy to understand Samadhi Bhasha. Samadhi Bhasha basically means somebody goes into trance and starts, speaking something. And, he's in the trance. And you have to be in trance to understand what he's speaking in his trance. If you are not in the trance and you're trying to understand what somebody in the trance is speaking to you, you will fail to understand. You will think that this person is cuckoo. Like in ancient Greece, the people would come to a temple, and in the temple there was some, lady. She would get into trance and started speaking in the trance some predictions, and then this called oracle, and this oracle has to be explained by somebody who is privy to this, going back and forth from trance back to our reality and again back to trance. So it really has to be understood by somebody who is on the same level, practically. Or at least the conditions has to be like this, that by speaking, the speaker has to put you into trance. I don't know if I'm capable of doing it. Probably some of you are already sleeping, so this is a sort of a trance. but what I want to say is that this is the process. Somebody is in the trance and he's speaking, his eyes are closed, he's not really seeing this reality. He's seeing the other reality, the non-dual reality of Brahman, of the spiritual world. And he's explaining what he's seeing, and to understand what he's speaking, you have to be on the same level. And our Acharya says, but this is not the only difficulty, because there are three languages, as I said. There are three languages by the means of which Srimad-Bhagavatam is written. It's not only the Samadhi Bhasha. Some portions of Srimad-Bhagavatam are written in a normal language, Lokik Bhasha. And the other portions of Srimad-Bhagavatam are written in the third language, which is called Anya Bhash. Anya Bhash, some other Bhasha. So in other words, you really have to understand what's going on. Whenever Shukadev Goswami is in trance and he is conveying the highest possible truth, or whenever he comes to a certain extent to external consciousness, and by being in external consciousness, he is giving some additional explanations. Our Acharya says that these two other types of languages, Anya Bhasha and Lokik Bhasha, that they're employed by Shukadev Goswami while he is explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam, but why he is using these languages? To explain Samadhi Bhasha. His main language, his main message is conveyed by the means of Samadhi Bhasha. But to explain Samadhi Bhasha, or the statements on Samadhi Bhasha, he employs other linguistic devices, so to speak, or other languages. And one has to understand what's going on, what's exactly going on. One has to be able to discern between this language or that language. So that's another difficulty about the three languages of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And then perhaps the most important difficulty in understanding Srimad-Bhagavatam is that, as we know, there are different meanings of the words. There is Abhida Vritti, there is Lakshana Vritti, there is Yoga Rudhi Vritti, there is Vyanjana Vritti. This is all difficult subject matter, and I'm not going to explain it in great details, but very briefly I can tell what are the difficulties. Like Abhida Vritti, Abhida means dictionary meaning. Abhida means, if you hear the word and you want to understand the meaning of this word, you go to the dictionary, you find the word, and you will understand the meaning according to the dictionary. Abhida Vritti. It's this direct meaning of the word Abhida Vritti, what is there in the dictionary. And if Srimad-Bhagavatam would be written, it's not possible to explain the subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam by this Abhida Vritti, unfortunately. The subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam is too esoteric. It's Sarvatita, Sarva Ashraya, Sarva Ascharya, Svabhava, Sarva Chintya. It's a very difficult subject matter. So Shukadev Goswami has to employ some other means. And then there's Lakshana Vritti. Lakshana Vritti means whenever the direct meaning does not work, then there has to be explanation according to the indirect meaning. Like the classical example is Gangayam Gosham, the village on Ganga. Because village cannot stay on Ganga. When we say Gangayam Gosham, it's a very common sort of a statement. We have to interpret this. It requires interpretation. Gangayam Gosham, it means that the village which is close to Ganga. But then the same statement also has Vyanjana Vritti. Vyanjana Vritti means implication. The implied meaning. And when we say Gangayam Gosham, it means that the village is near Ganga, and it also means that this village is pure, because Ganga is very pure, it's a purifying agent, and people are taking baths every day in Ganga. It means that they're pure. So when we say Gangayam Gosham, the implied meaning is that it's a village where pure-hearted people are living. That meaning is also there. But it's not in the direct meaning of the words. In the direct meaning of the words, it just says village on Ganga. So you have to really understand what it means according to context and according to different meanings. So, and then Yoga Rudhi Vritti, or conventional meaning, it's also very interesting. Conventional meaning is that there is the dictionary meaning of the word, but this dictionary meaning of the word is used in our day-to-day life according to our realities. And the conventional meaning, which is included in the meaning of this word, can be very much different according to this usage. Like the famous example is lotus, pankaja. Pankaja means something which is growing from the Abhida Vritti, the dictionary meaning. The direct meaning is that something which is growing from the mud. But the conventional meaning is lotus. Usually pankaja is used to denote lotus, not anything else. But there are so many things which are growing from mud. So technically speaking, you can call pankaja many different things you can call pankaja. But the conventional meaning is that it's lotus. But the problem is that the conventions are different. You have one convention and I have different conventions. Conventions are different according to our cultural upbringing. People who are English speaking, who are, whose mother tongue is English, they have some convention. And even American language and English, British language are different. Why? Because, dictionary meaning is the same, but conventional meaning, expressive meaning, according to the expressions of phraseological meaning, can be different. And sometimes, some American people, they say something and you scratch your head and you think, what the heck they mean? What does it mean? Because when Shukadev Goswami speaks this, he implies something which we may not necessarily understand. And of course, when we're talking about Vyanjana Vritti, this is implied meaning. The fourth meaning, most important meaning when we're dealing with Srimad-Bhagavatam, Vyanjana Vritti is extremely difficult to understand because Vyanjanas is a very life of poetry. And Srimad-Bhagavatam is explaining to us the poetical meaning of love, conveying very deep emotional truths, emotional meanings. And because the very goal of Srimad-Bhagavatam is to explain rasa, rasa cannot be explained by Abhida Vritti. If you try to use Abhida Vritti and explain rasa, you will be a laughing stock. The only means to convey rasa is to use Vyanjana Vritti, implied meanings. And implied meanings, you all know what it means. Our acharyas sometimes explained implied meanings. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is addressing Arjuna Dhananjaya, or when Arjuna is addressing Krishna Govinda, our acharyas are explaining what he implies by addressing Krishna Govinda. It doesn't necessarily mean when Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita says to Krishna, "Oh Govinda," it doesn't really mean that he is speaking with him as a cowherd boy and Arjuna is meditating on his, pastimes in Vrindavan when he's herding the cows. Literally, Govinda means the cowherd boy. But when Arjuna addresses Krishna Govinda, he means something else. He implies something else. He implies that Govinda, Go means senses, and you are the one who satisfy all the senses, or the one who possess all the senses. So, you are satisfying all the senses, and I am not happy. And in this way, Arjuna is more or less rebuking Krishna and saying that something is wrong going on here. He is using this very sweet name, Govinda, but he means to chastise Krishna in the particular context. And to understand this, you really have to be, you have to know what's going on. You have to understand the context. So this is another difficulty. And of course, when it comes to the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam is all about these Vyanjanas, all about these nuances of rasa, the different emotional reverberations. Vyanjana, another synonym for Vyanjana is Dvani. Dvani means the vibrations of the bell, overtones. When you ring the bell, you not only hear the main tone, which can be compared with Abhida Vritti, the direct meaning of the words, but you also understand many overtones. You hear many overtones, and in this way the sound becomes very deep. Whereas if you only have the main vibration, the sound is not so pleasing. So in the same way, every verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam, especially when it comes to Samadhi Bhasha, and especially when it comes to the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is practically all written in Samadhi Bhasha, it's all convey many subtle nuances of the meanings, which by the means of Vyanjana Vritti. Like, I was reading one contemporary translator of the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and he's translating very thoroughly all the commentaries of Acharyas to the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And when it comes to Sanatana Goswami, he uses a very peculiar language. He says that Sanatana Goswami, when he explains the meaning of the verse, he's brainstorming. And it's a very unusual sort of language. But indeed, this impression may happen to you when you read Sanatana Goswami commentaries, because he just takes the verse and he gives, at least a dozen of different meanings, when it means this and it means that and means this. For inexperienced reader, he can be just completely bewildered. What's going on here? Why don't you tell me straight? Like Arjuna also sometimes addresses Krishna and says, why don't you tell me something straightforward, please? But Krishna himself says that paroksha vada rishayah, paroksha mama chapriyah. He says, I'm more pleased when somebody is speaking indirectly about me. And the rishis, the sages, they don't speak directly. They very rarely speak directly. They don't use this device. They use completely indirect language. And he says, paroksha mama chapriya. When somebody indirectly is speaking about me, it's more pleasing. And it's actually more pleasing, because when you speak directly, it's blunt. When you try to glorify somebody and you directly speak to his face, how great he is, it's blunt, and it's usually a flattery. It's not really glorification. If you want to glorify somebody, you have to say something much more subtle, something parokshvada, and then that really goes deep in the heart. So Srimad-Bhagavatam is conveying very deep truths by the means of this parokshvada, of this indirect language, employing different devices. So that's the introduction. Now I will start the lecture. Now I will not go on too long. I wanted to say many more things, but I will limit myself by explaining how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada is explaining the different layers of the meaning which are there in Srimad-Bhagavatam. In one amazing lecture which he gave in Calcutta in 1930, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada says that ultimately, what is Srimad-Bhagavatam? Srimad-Bhagavatam is the treatise which is conveying to us the meaning of Satyam Param, Supreme Absolute Truth, who is God. The ultimate, again, we are being a little blunt here and being too direct, but one may say that the main message of Srimad-Bhagavatam is to explain the absolute truth, the nature of absolute truth. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says that to explain the highest nature of absolute truth, Srimad-Bhagavatam in sequence explains different partial conceptions of the absolute truth. Because in the human society, when it comes to explain the absolute truth, there are so many different conceptions. So many different people, different sects, different religious movements, they're trying to explain the nature of absolute truth in their own way. And actually, every philosophy is explaining the nature of absolute truth, but everyone is not equally successful. They all convey some certain meaning of absolute truth, or rather they convey the meaning how the absolute truth is reflected in their consciousness. When we take different philosophies, the ultimate meaning of their philosophies is that this is how they could understand the absolute truth. This is how, or rather, how the absolute truth, by his own sweet will, was reflected in their heart. So, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada says that if we take Srimad-Bhagavatam, in Srimad-Bhagavatam we have 8 progressively more complicated and more complete conceptions of the absolute truth. And they're all there, expressed in different ways. It says that the very rudimentary conception of the absolute truth, which everyone has while beginning to meditate on the absolute truth. Because again, the subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam is to meditate on the absolute truth, Satyam Param Dhimahi. So the very beginning conception of the absolute truth is that samshaya. Samshaya means doubt. I don't really understand whether he exists or not. And this is conception. This is a very, very meager, but still it's a conception. You started thinking about absolute truth, you started meditating about absolute truth, and while trying to meditate on the absolute truth, you confront with your own complete bewilderment and doubt. You don't know. You don't really know whether it exists or not. And you doubt. You don't say no. And it's interesting that the beginning conception is doubt. The next conception, it doesn't exist, Gnostic. The absolute truth as the person does not exist. So it's interesting, like in the 3rd canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, we have this story about Lord Brahma. When Lord Brahma was born on the lotus flower of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and he appeared all of a sudden, and he started looking around, and he was quite bewildered what's going on, and he wanted to understand his origin, and he started diving deep. And even though I'm really sorry, there is some sort of a storm going on, so the electricity is out. So in this story, when Lord Brahma dove deep into the waters of Garbhodaka ocean, trying to find his origin, his own origin, the cause of all causes, this conception of absolute truth, beginning conception of absolute truth, as a doubt, whether it exists or not, is being figuratively explained. And we all have this sort of understanding that I don't know whether the absolute truth exists or not, but I want to understand, but I have my doubts, and sometimes I believe, sometimes I don't believe, and I remain unresolved. I cannot really understand what is the reality. In the same way as Lord Brahma was not really clear, even though he tried hard by diving deep, he couldn't find out. And therefore he heard this sound, tapa. And it was told, he was revealed the method of understanding, how to get rid of these doubts, how to dissipate these doubts and understand the reality. To understand reality, you have to perform tapa. Tapa means contemplation. Tapa means meditation on the absolute truth. So you really have to just meditate, just to concentrate your consciousness. That's the first conception. The second conception is Nastika. No, absolute truth as a person does not exist. Again, in the 3rd canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, it's also very beautifully explained in the story of Hiranyaksha, how Hiranyaksha was fighting with Varahadev, with the incarnation of the Lord in the form of boar. So when he first saw boar, Lord boar, as Prabhupada translates, with the earth planet on his tusk, so Hiranyaksha started laughing. And he said, "You're Vanagocharam, you are amphibia, you're some creature, Vanagocharam Mrigaha." Mrigaha means beast. And Srila Prabhupada translates it like this: it's you are, water-dwelling beast, amphibious beast. You are some creature who lives sometimes in water, sometimes on the earth. So, and that's this very beautiful storm is going on here. So this verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam is actually explaining this Nastika philosophy that no, it's not possible. Lord cannot take definite form. Lord cannot become the person. Lord doesn't exist. It's just some beast. It's some just illusory creature. It's some creation. So of course we know that Hiranyaksha failed. This understanding of the absolute truth didn't help him in his life. Anyway, so that's the second level, second conception, which is there in Srimad-Bhagavatam. And again, why these partial conceptions are being explained in Srimad-Bhagavatam for us to understand the full, complete conception. We will not be able to understand the complete conception of the absolute truth unless we go through all these different stages and really work out or overcome the difficulties. Because what we're dealing with our conditioned nature, and our conditioned nature has all these partial conceptions or misconceptions about the absolute truth. They're there. In a more pronounced form, in a sick form, we have some atheistic nature, we have some doubtful nature. It's all there. So Srimad-Bhagavatam has to refute it before establishing the complete conception of the absolute truth. It's not possible to establish the complete conception of the absolute truth unless we overcome this difficulty, which is natural and which is there in everyone's heart. So then the third level of misconception, a little higher misconception, little more complete, but still quite incomplete misconception is, of course, Nirgun. Nirgun is that God cannot be person, God cannot have any qualities. And again, if you look in Srimad-Bhagavatam, when Hiranyakashipu is facing the same problem, that he will have to die, and he knows that he will have to die from God, he tries to eliminate God. He tries to deprive God of all his personal features, or all, in fact, not only personal, any features. Nirgun. He's not like this, he's not like that, he's, in the form of blessings of Lord Brahma. I don't want to be killed by somebody who is human being, by somebody who is the animal, by somebody who is created by you, by this, by that. Actually, what he means to say, what he's saying in reality is that God is impersonal. And this is the secret meaning of his inquiry, or his blessings which he asked from Lord Brahma. Because he has this conception, he cannot really understand that God is a person. How he can be person, he cannot really understand this. as much as we cannot sometimes understand. How is that God is personal, that he has this completely personal feature with qualities? And then the fourth level of understanding, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada says, is kliba. Kliba means neuter, napumsak. Kliba means important. It's God. He has personal features, but he doesn't have any potency. He is not really capable of doing anything because he doesn't have potency. This is also there in Srimad-Bhagavatam, in some stories or in some explanations or conceptions which are there, which are ultimately being refuted. Then after Kliba, the next conception is God as Purusha. Purusha means potent. Purusha means male. Male has the potency, and it's already quite developed personal conception of God. God is a person, not only he is the person, he is powerful person, Purusha. He is capable of doing everything which he wants according to his will. This is quite high, but by far not the ultimate conception of truth. In many religions, they speak about God as potent, as all-powerful, even as a Purusha. Higher conception of God is even more interesting. Higher conception of God is Mithuna, means God with his Shakti. God in relationship with his Shakti. Mithuna means, of course, we know it means intercourse. So we are not only speaking about absolute truth as the male person, as the Purusha, we're also speaking about the female counterpart of the person, of his Shakti, and the interaction between the Lord and his Shakti. So that's the next conception of the absolute truth. And then when it comes to this, before it's God with his Shakti, then God with Purusha with Shakti, then Purusha with Shakti in a very intimate way. When he enters into very intimate relationship with his Shakti, with his different energies, and that's Mithuna conception of God. That's already very, very high conception of God, but still not the highest one. And then the next one, when we're talking about this Mithuna conception, how God is intimately relating with his energies, we come to Swakiya. And most of the people, they don't go further. They say that, yes, God is a person, he's a potent person, he has his Shakti. Yes, he is very intimately involved in the interaction with his Shaktis, but it's all Swakiya, it's all on a very formal level, so to speak, according to the rules of Dharma. And then the highest conception of God, which is there in Srimad-Bhagavatam, is of course Parakiya, illegal connection between the male Purusha, the potent personality of Godhead with his energy, but who is engaged in his beautiful lila in a seemingly illegal way, or whatever, how we call it, basically unrestricted way. Because what is the difference between Swakiya and Parakiya? The difference is that Swakiya is restricted in many, many ways, whereas Parakiya is not restricted. And ultimately, this is the highest meaning or conception of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which Srimad-Bhagavatam wants to convey to us, is that God is absolutely free. He is all-powerful, and there is no limitations which people, by philosophizing about God, by conceptualizing God, by trying to understand God, absolute truth, are implying or applying upon him. They knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or subconsciously, are limiting the absolute truth. being limited themselves, they try to limit the absolute truth. The amazing message of Srimad-Bhagavatam or meaning of Srimad-Bhagavatam is that Srimad-Bhagavatam conveys completely unlimited absolute truth. Absolute truth which is not limited by anything else, by no human conceptions. And to understand this absolute truth, we have to open our heart, and by opening our heart through the oral perception about the absolute truth, through listening about the absolute truth, hearing the absolute truth from Srimad Bhagavatam, we will be able to contain this completely full absolute truth, totally complete conception of absolute truth within our consciousness, and that's the real meaning of Satyam Param Dhimahi. Let's meditate on the absolute truth. If we go through these different misconceptions and understand how they are limiting and bringing actually misfortune to the living entities, bringing about ruination of the living entities in their attempts to understand the absolute truth. If we understand how these limitations are not beneficial, and if we really get rid of these limiting tendencies within our consciousness and try to understand absolute truth as he is from Srimad Bhagavatam, by listening Srimad Bhagavatam from Krishna himself to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasadeva, from Vyasadeva to Sukadeva Goswami, from Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaja Pariksit, from Sukadeva Goswami to Sutta Goswami, from Sutta Goswami to sages of Naimisharanya, from this to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, from him to Srila Prabhupada, then ultimately we will be able to really follow the command which is also there in this first and last verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Satyam Param Dhimahi, because it's some sort of imperative language. Ultimately, the fullest exhibition of our spiritual nature can be revealed when we will be able to meditate on this supreme truth by understanding unrestricted meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam from Guru Parampara, and in this way meditating on the absolute truth. I think I will finish here now. I will just say a few words of what I wanted to say. I wanted to say is that it's a very important sadhana to listen Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's not easy because one has to be very receptive and very open his heart towards the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to understand that this is the Krishna himself who is trying to reveal himself to us through this aprakrita vachana, through these transcendental words. There's no other way to understand Srimad Bhagavatam but by the process of revelation, through Guru Parampara, through listening. And if we do this, we will be able to do this, but we should not fall prey of the simplistic explanations of Srimad Bhagavatam. We should not think that just by understanding some literal meaning of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, we really understand the meaning of this great transcendental literature. It takes whole time, lifetime, perhaps not even one lifetime to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, but we do have hope, and it's a very beautiful process. So thank you very much. I think I will finish now. I spoke long enough.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, yeah, we have a little time for questions. If anybody, can we have a small question answer session? Yeah, okay. So, please, place your questions. We have an opportunity, right now. So let's not, give up on this opportunity. So please, I encourage all the devotees. Okay.
I guess
So,
I bewildered
Govinda
everyone.
So Govinda Prabhu has asked, Govinda Prabhu from Sharjah, he's asked the question, Maharaj, is there a hope for us to get to this depth of understanding?
There is a hope. See, there are different levels, layers of understanding, and we can understand something. We may not understand everything, but the hope is there, and it's just a question of our humility and sincere desire. It's actually only a question of sincerity of desire, nothing else. And to a certain extent, we can understand, and the more we read, the more we will be able to understand. The more we not read, really, serve Srimad-Bhagavatam by revealing our heart or opening our heart towards the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the more Srimad-Bhagavatam will reveal its message to us. So hope is there. Otherwise, what is this is a joke, we're distributing Srimad-Bhagavatam full sets. If there was no hope, what would be the use of this exercise? So Prabhupada wrote his commentaries to us to reveal the meaning, and if we serve his books and read his books, the meaning will reveal itself gradually. Swayam eva spuratadaha.
Govinda Prabhu, can you unmute him, please? Govinda Prabhu, you can unmute yourself, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Maharaj. It's very enlightening. What the cause of concern is the amount of the volume of the study. Even to grasp it with this, with our current working style and we giving our time for this process seems to become so unfathomable. Even today, you just gave the glimpse of the four type of absolute truth, and then the four difficulties to understand the conception of evolution, and to get this whole thing synced into us seems to be too much beyond. Sorry to share this, but this is the fact at the first call. Yes, there is so much enthusiasm. Yes, we need. That's the only hope for us to understand the absolute truth the right way. But really, it's like where we need to get there. Okay, there are a few things, and probably we can do that. But knowledge, adaptation of this knowledge, you have grounded so much into yourself that we are very able to explain it to us so well. It's scary.
What I can, you finished with your question, or it was not clear?
Yeah. Sorry, Maharaj, I spoke for long and too much.
No problem. Now, see, we cannot understand Srimad-Bhagavatam ourselves by our own endeavors, but Srimad-Bhagavatam definitely can reveal himself to us if he sees our sincere attitude. And it is said specifically in this first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srinvatam Svakatah Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantach Sohya Vidunotis Suhrit Satam. This Suhrit, the well-wisher, is Hridyantach, he is within our heart. Hridyantach Stha, he is there within our heart, Hyavadrani, and therefore he vidunoti. What he does, he clarifies the heart, he purifies the heart, vidunoti, Suhrit Satam. He is true well-wisher, as Prabhupada is translating this verse. He is real well-wisher, and therefore when he sees our sincere endeavors just to listen, just to hear about him. Srimad-Bhagavatam Swakata Krishna. We may understand, we may not understand anything. Krishna understands. He is within our heart. He knows that we are trying, and he will help. He will purify the heart. Like there is a beautiful story about Prabhupada. When once in Vrindavan, he was speaking to some guests in Hindi, and some of his American disciples and English-speaking disciples, they stood up and wanted to go out from the room. And Prabhupada said, "Where are you going?" They said, "Prabhupada, we don't understand Hindi." Prabhupada said, just sit and listen. You anyway don't understand when I speak English, so there's no difference whether I speak Hindi or English. And it's a fact. Sometimes we understand very little what somebody is trying to reveal to us or explain to us. But then after some time, all of a sudden, boom, it's being revealed to us. All of a sudden, some realization is coming to us. So, Krishna is there. Vidunoti suhrit satam, hridyantaksto hyabadrani. He will take care of all the problems, and the only requirement is the sincerity, sincere desire to listen.
Well, I thank you very much. It's really, just these few words is definitely giving hope. Yes, we can get there. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Maharaj, next question is from Devi Dasi. So she says that you have answered during just now the explanation, but a question essentially is that when we are studying or serving Srimad-Bhagavatam, can we do so without any help?
No, we need help. We need help. We need help from somebody who is more experienced and more has more realization, has deeper realization. We need help. We always need help. That's the very essence of bhakti. The very essence of bhakti is to understand that we need help in every situation of our life. That's what Sharanagati means. We need help all the time. Well, we can read. It's good. It's always good. And sometimes Krishna may reveal himself. The help is there from Krishna, definitely. There is. It's good, but at the same time, we have to understand clearly that without help of others, we will not go to the same depths as we could if somebody helps us.
Thank you, Maharaj. So we have another question. This is a question from Kishori Mataji in Dubai. Because the audio was breaking a little bit, to get the whole partial conception and understanding of God that you took us through. But there's a question that can we get slides or notes? So that is something.
I think this will be uploaded on the internet. The complete version of the lecture will be there, and I can ask somebody to make a notes and to put it also there.
Thank you, Maharaj. Now, next question is from Sunaja Mataji. Her question is, one must understand Bhagavad Gita before Srimad-Bhagavatam, or both studies can be done parallelly. Is there any connection, or is it up to the devotee's enthusiasm and curiosity to know about the Supreme Absolute?
We can definitely study both books at the same time. but we also have to very clearly understand that when Srila Prabhupada explains Bhagavad Gita, he explains Bhagavad Gita on the basis of the philosophy of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Therefore, sometimes we can see Krishna says karma, and Srila Prabhupada in his word by word in Bhagavad Gita says bhakti yoga. So some people say, what's going on? And Srila Prabhupada is very open. He is not trying to hide this. Srila Prabhupada is giving the intention which is behind Bhagavad Gita, and one can only understand the intention of Krishna which is behind Bhagavad Gita by understanding the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So there is no harm. Of course, Prabhupada said that first you understand Bhagavad Gita and we should follow this. But at the same time, he from the very beginning started his mission while bringing the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and he started also classes on Srimad-Bhagavatam in every temple together with Bhagavad Gita. So it can be either way done, but we really have to understand that our explanation or our point of view, or how to say this, our perspective of Bhagavad Gita, of the meaning of Bhagavad Gita, is very much dependent on the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is much more clearly revealed. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam is, in one sense, is a very clear book. So, therefore, even more clear in terms of the clarity and consistency of the message, even though the difficulties are there, which I explained too. So, Edwin Herrera, or just reading and understand. What is the best way to read for the first time the Bhagavatam? Is it analyzing each verse, every word, and thinking about the different possible meaning Srila Prabhupada wanted to say to us, or just reading and understand one meaning of Srila Prabhupada? I'm a little bit confused because you was mentioning there are different meanings of the scriptures. So in the beginning, it's better to have the more or less overview of the book and to understand the message. Therefore, for example, Jiva Goswami, he wrote his most profound commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam is not on the basis of the verses. It's on a topical basis. His most profound commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam is Sat Sandarbha, and on Sat Sandarbha he gives a very consistent understanding of the philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam, not the story, not according to the storyline of Srimad Bhagavatam, but according to the message, philosophically structured message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, in the beginning, it's good to understand what's going on, what this book is all about. And Prabhupada actually gives a very good overview of this in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, he said that the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is for mass distribution because it gives the general understanding of what is the book and what is the methodology of the book. It's also good to have some general review of the themes of Srimad Bhagavatam, of the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, to kind of understand the greater context of this book. I will explain a little bit in more details next lecture about this. So it's good to have general overview how Srimad Bhagavatam works, what are the topics of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and how ultimately they bring us to understand the most important topic of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is Ashraya, which is Krishna himself. So that will be the subject matter of our discussion. So it's good to understand this as well. And then I would suggest then to first read the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam, just verses. Because when we read verse and purport, sometimes we lose the interest, sometimes we lose the storyline, sometimes we get confused. So to have the overview, first it's good to go through the whole book and understand what is going on in the book. And at the same time understand what is the inner meaning which is being conveyed by the means of different stories. And then on the next level, you can go deeply in the chapter-wise, to read chapter-wise and to understand chapter-wise and then verse-wise. So it can be done in different ways. And actually, everyone has to see what is better for him. But I would recommend first to read first canto to get the general understanding, and especially the introduction to the first canto, where Srila Prabhupada explains the biography of Lord Chaitanya and the meaning why Srila Prabhupada included the complete biography of Lord Chaitanya in the beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam is that the very life of Lord Chaitanya is the explanation of Srimad-Bhagavatam. He is the living Bhagavata, and the meaning of Bhagavatam itself was revealed by different events of his life, by his different teachings. So Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya himself, is explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam by his life, and therefore Srila Prabhupada first explains it there, so that we have the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam in gist. Then the first canto, then the whole book, just verses to understand what's going on, and then canto-wise, chapter-wise, verses-wise, going deeper, deeper, and deeper into the meaning.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's
Maharaj,
actually just one more little thing. In Skanda Purana, there is a beautiful section which is called Bhagavata Mahatmya, glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. And in Skanda Purana, it is explained the method of understanding Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said that Srimad Bhagavatam can be understood in different ways according to the modes of nature. And I'm not sure if I get it right, but more or less I will convey the right meaning. It is said that if somebody is reading Srimad-Bhagavatam and he is reading Srimad-Bhagavatam for many, many years, and and he already forget what is there in the beginning, and he doesn't know where he is going, this is some sort of reading of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's reading in Tamagun. So that's Skanda Purana. Then it says, if he reads Srimad Bhagavatam within 7 days, like they do in this Bhagavata Saptaha, they get together and within 7 days they quickly read Srimad Bhagavatam and go, doing some review. It's studying of Srimad Bhagavatam in Rajagun. Of course, the original studying of Srimad Bhagavatam by Maharaja Pariksit does not fall into this category because it's in a completely different level. Then, if one reads Srimad Bhagavatam within a few months and understanding the whole structure of the book and spends the couple of months by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the studying of Srimad Bhagavatam in Sattva Gun. as far as if I remember it correctly. And and there is a transcendental understanding of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which I don't recall exactly how it is there in this Bhagavad Mahatmya. But what I want to say is that when we just read, and this reading becomes a completely very long sort of a procedure, and we don't know what's going on, and we already lost the storyline, then it's not a very good method of understanding Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. We have quite a few questions also from YouTube. So I'll just shift to two questions they're requesting, the devotees there. So one question is, it's a question and a request. Can you also give overview of all cantos and how it brings us to the 10th canto, the smiling face?
I will definitely do it. Either in next class or the class after that. I will do it. Very short overview I will do. How they will bring us to the 10th canto.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. And the next question is, we get doubts on Krishna and on the process by hearing some pastimes from Srimad-Bhagavatam, particularly the 10th canto. What to do?
Here, those people who can explain it because they understand the inner meaning of this, and because they are in contact with this reality. You know, it's very difficult for us to understand, because how do we understand the other's language? We understand somebody speaking to us through the medium of our samskaras. We all have different impressions, we all have different experiences in this world, and therefore, when we hear something, we compare what we hear with what happened with us. We more or less reflect our experience on what we are hearing. And when we hear something from the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, either we project completely unwholesome material experience into this transcendental pastimes of Krishna, which is not helpful. Definitely, we more or less equate within our consciousness or within our heart what is going on in the 10th canto with what is going on with us, or the descriptions are so far out, so far beyond our experience that we just cannot relate to it. Again, to understand something, we have to have at least some experience of what is being talked about. You know, if all of a sudden I will start talking to you completely foreign to you subject matter, which you have no experience with, something, which completely beyond your scope of your experience, you will not be able to understand what I'm talking about. Just because you will not be able to relate, what does it mean really? So I can only appeal to your experience. And if you don't have the experience, then you will not be able to understand. So what to do in this case? In this case, you have to have a speaker who will be able to give you experience while he's speaking. This is the miracle which is happening sometimes. We hear some subject matter which is very far away from us, which we don't really understand, which we cannot really relate to because it's beyond our understanding. But all of a sudden, this subject matter will become very clear, and we understand. Yes, of course. Sure. Why? It is because the speaker gave us this experience. Through the process of hearing, we got the required samskara. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami while commenting on the process of devotional service, Ado Shraddha, on this series of on this verse, Ado Shraddha Tatak Sadhu Sangha, he says that Shravana Dvara Kinchit Anubhuti Sati. He says that while listening, if the speaker is qualified, you will get some anubhuti. Anubhuti means some experience. You will get, it's not so, to understand something which is beyond our experience, there is a way to understand this, is to hear somebody who has experience, and while explaining this, he will convey his own experience to you.
Right. Maharaj, you have a little time for some more questions?
I guess we should finish now. It's already quite late.
So I would request all, we have a few more questions, but I would like every one of you to please remember and save your questions for our next session next Friday.
No, what you can do, you can collect all the questions. I encourage all the questions. I will be happy to answer all the questions, but some I will answer while speaking the next subject matter, and perhaps we can have some separate time while I will just answer the questions. So you please collect the questions, and we will allocate a separate time for this.